Are you ready?
Join on the corner where the big boys play.
Oh, hello, everybody. How are we doing today? Welcome to the Ask StreamYard show. This is the show where we feature your questions and we take a deep dive and we answer the question. So, hello, everybody. Let me know where you are tuning in from. We got all kinds of people joining in today. Super excited to see everybody. Good morning, Letitia. It's great to see you here with us this morning in our Ask StreamYard show. So, this is the show where we feature you guys. So, my name is Melanie Dyann Howe, and I want to know where you're watching from. I also want to know if you've ever had a guest on your live show before, because that is exactly what we are going to be talking about today. Today's show is all about how to find the perfect guest for your live streams. This is actually something that I think a lot of people are interested in. A lot of people are curious. They're intrigued about having guests on their shows, but a lot of people are also a little bit nervous about having a guest on their show because what if it doesn't go very well, right? In fact, many of you that have been live streaming for a while and have had guests in your shows before, maybe you've had an experience where your guest was not such a great experience for your audience or for you, for that matter. So it definitely can happen. So we're going to be talking about that topic today. But before, let me check in on everybody. Good morning to everyone. It's good to see everybody here today. So Christian says I need to raise my volume. All right, I'm going to raise my volume up a little bit. Hopefully that's better for everybody. So, oh my gosh, we got Toronto in the house. Hello, Pure Stage, watching from Toronto. Up in Canada. We have Fernando from Brazil. It's great to see you. Oh, Guy Cook is here as well. Kennewick. I think I'm saying that correctly. Kennewick. Okay. We got Ohio in the house. What is up? Jim Lawyer's here again. Good to see you as well, Jim, hanging in with us. Event Planners Talk from Germany. We got Dave from Atlanta. Stuart is here. Hello. It's good to see you. And let's see here. Pure Stage says, yep, I have had a guest before. Yeah, I want to know if you guys have had guests before. I would love to know who here has and who here hasn't. Maybe that you're not. Superstar actors here. Well, good morning to you, wherever you're watching from. We got the Philippines in the house. We always have lots of our friends watching over from the Philippines, so it's great to see you here. Let's see. Guy says, I have never done a live show with a guest. Always record them. Yes, you can pre-record them. But similarly, right, we have to make sure that those guests are going to be a good fit, right? So we're going to be talking about that today. It's going to be fantastic. Okay. All right. Let me see here. We have got Flint, Michigan in the house, the bathroom. Yeah, I mean, hey, maybe you're getting ready. I know I love to listen to podcasts and multitask when I'm getting ready. I'm in the shower and I'm getting ready in the morning. So definitely one of those, totally a fair place to be watching and tuning in from. Hello, Anita. It's great to see you. Event Planners Talk says, yes, often we do live interviews with event industry professionals. Love it. That's fantastic. Very, very good. Okay, cool. Anna Maria has guests on every episode. Fantastic. Anna Maria, I'm sure you're going to have some awesome things to share with us in today's great stuff here. So today's topic, we are talking about having guests in our live shows. Now, this is the Ask StreamYard show. So if you have a question, you can absolutely use this hashtag Ask StreamYard. We look for these. I know Christian does a really great job of pulling these from all the different platforms, and we look for really good questions where we can take a deep dive, right? So not like little support questions and things like that, but strategy. We love to talk about your live streaming strategies to help you improve your streams. Now, we also talk about, techniques and things like that. So if you're looking for some help with your techniques for your live streams, maybe even equipment, some other things like that, those are absolutely great things to ask as well. We've definitely been doing, this is episode 23. So we've been doing these shows for a while. About every week, we're here live at 11 a.m. with you on Wednesdays. That's Eastern time where we are doing this show. So super excited to be here with you guys again for today's show. Now, I will say this before we get started. and I'm going to talk about today's question. If you have a feature request, right? So today we're talking about interviews and guesting and things like that. So you're definitely totally ask away questions about that topic. But if you have a feature request, I know sometimes when we start talking about StreamYard and we start geeking out a little bit about live video, a lot of you get really excited about either questions around upcoming feature requests, as well as you have great ideas about other feature requests. If you have that, then what I want you to do is don't put them in the comments necessarily. Just go to our website at StreamYard.com/contact. You can actually, you'll see a link there for a form that you can fill out that's going to go to our developers team. And they are reviewing these. They want to hear your feedback. They certainly want to hear what features you want. So if you have a feature request or an idea for a feature, definitely go to StreamYard.com/contact and you'll find that form to fill out there. So, all right, today's topic came from a question that was posted by John Troncali. And I hope I'm saying his name correctly. But so John here has posted this question. And I love how he prefaced it. He said, having a great guest is something that we all dream of for our shows. Now, I will say, if you're not dreaming about that, I hope that you will think about it. Finding someone with the knowledge and personality that bring viewers and keeps them there is challenging. So my question to all content creators is, what steps do you use to ensure you picked the perfect guest? I love this question. This is a great question. In fact, as I mentioned, a lot of people, I know sometimes I've seen this question a lot. I see this question when it comes to guests for your live shows. I also see this question in the podcast communities. People are like, hey, how do you find a good guest for your podcast? Or how do you find good people to collaborate with for your business and in your content, right? So this is a very hot topic. It's awesome. I love that John posted this. By the way, we sent John one of these awesome t-shirts, one of these StreamYard t-shirts. So if we do pick your question to feature, then we will send you a t-shirt as well. Maybe even some other swag too. I mean, I don't know if you're going to get one of these. These are hard to come by. Puddles. Hi. Hello, everybody. Good morning. I was not meant to be a puppeteer, but it's all right. There you go. There's my 30 seconds, my 10 seconds of being a puppeteer, right? I don't know. I just thought it felt right. It felt right in the moment. So there you go. All right, let me see here. Let's see. So we've got Letitia says, I love having my clients as a guest. Yes, this is a great example, actually. So the first thing I did want to talk about is I actually do want to talk to you guys about why do we even want to have guests in the first place, right? So we are going to talk about that in just a moment here. So for sure. All right, I'm just making sure we don't have any other things going on in the comments. So, okay, let me see here. Let's see. Okay. I think we're good to get started. We are ready to rock and roll. Okay. All right. This is a great point. So Walter, you're jumping ahead of me, my friend, but yes, you do want to build a relationship. We are going to talk about that for sure. Okay. So let's check this out. I can't help this. I'm sorry. Davey says, I now need to order a lava lamp and it's all your fault. Y'all. These lava lamps are it, man. They are where it's at. Now, let me tell you about the lava lamps really fast. This one is just like a bunch of water and some glitter. You can get them at all kinds of stores, like Walmart. You can get them on Amazon. This one, right now, the lava is down low. Now, I don't have my lava lamp cam set up. If I had it turned on, I'd show it to you guys. If you're going to get a lava lamp, you want one of those real lava lamps, you got to remember to turn it on a couple hours before you're going to go live because it's got to heat up. So that's why it's like, wah, wah. The lava lamp today is wah, wah, for sure. So, all right, let's see here. Let me get my stuff all set up here because I want to talk first about why do we even want to have guests for your live stream? So John asked this great question about how to find the perfect guest. And he prefaced it by saying, hey, we all dream about it. But honestly, maybe you're not all dreaming about this, right? Maybe you're not all thinking, I need to have guests in my live streams. So let's talk about this first. I want to talk about why it's actually really great for you to consider guests in your streams. So the number one reason is that you're actually going to diversify your content. You are going to be able to share with your audience another element, a whole nother dynamic to your content, right? To your videos. Now, this comes in many forms, but here's the thing. You are the reason why your audience is there, right? You, the host, you as the brand, whatever that might be, you're the reason why they're subscribed to you, why they're following you, but you are only so many, one person, or if you have a team of people that's streaming on your brand, then There's only so much you can do. There's only so much you know. There's only so much you can share, right? All these things. So here's the deal. When you bring guests onto your show, you can actually bring people that know things about topics that you aren't an expert in. So I love that, right? But also, when people see other people in your content, it actually is very intriguing to them. So many audience members, many people when we're in our social medias, right? We're here, we're scrolling, we're seeing a lot of the same old, right? But when we see like, whoa, Melanie's got somebody on the screen with her today, right? Like it creates interest. Well, who are they talking to today? Right? And so having that person in your stream not only is going to help stop the scroll, it's adding, like I said, a whole nother dynamic to your content. And so it's just genuinely more interesting sometimes. Now, the other thing that I love about this is that it also will increase engagement. You will find that when you have a guest in your show, often you will actually see that there are more and more comments going on. Not only are people engaging with you, they're going to be engaging with your guest, or they have questions for your guest, or just as I said, more people are actually tuning in live because this particular type of stream is more intriguing to the audience member, to the viewer. And so we're getting more views, we're getting more live views, we're getting people to stop that scroll on our content, but also we're getting more engagement, which is what we want, right? We absolutely want to have a conversation. Content is about conversations. It should be. Now, the other thing I love about having a guest is kind of one of these, it's a fringe benefit, okay? This is what I like to call a fringe benefit. So it's not necessarily your objective, right? But it is definitely a fringe benefit. Now, when you have a guest on your show, many times, many times, that guest is going to share your show. They're going to share your live video. They're going to share that feed. They're going to say, hey, check me out. I'm over on so-and-so's live video today talking about blah, 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 right? They're either going to do this before you go live. So if you're using StreamYard and you schedule the stream, they're going to do it that way. Or if you are, live in the moment, they're going to schedule it. They're going to share it right away as you go live. Lastly, they may share it after the fact. They may say, hey, earlier today I was on this show. It was really great, blah, blah, blah. What is that doing? That's putting you in front of their audience, right? So you actually are expanding your reach. You are expanding your, organic reach with that particular live video. And so, of course, if it's aligned in that audience, the audience of that person, heck, maybe they are really a really good fit for your content. Now they've just been exposed to you where they maybe have never heard of you before. So there's a fringe benefit that actually is going to expand that reach for you. So that is definitely something that I wanted to point out as well, because it may not be your, I think you have to be very careful about your objectives. It should be about creating great content, great value for your audience, and of course, a good experience with your guests, maybe doing some networking. But again, that fringe benefit is like, oh, I actually also am expanding my reach and maybe even bringing in new leads, new people into my audience. So there's that as well. So I definitely wanted to talk about that and make sure we talked a little bit about why it's important to have that guest, thinking about guests in your shows, right? So I love this idea, actually, event planners. In the end of the show, you can ask who I should interview next. Who is an expert, I think, on X topic? Yes, great suggestion, asking your audience, right? For sure. So I love it. Okay, so let me see here. I'm checking. So Letitia had a great comment a second ago I saw. Let me go find that. She says, yes, having a guest creates that pattern interrupt. That's a really great way to put it, Letitia. I love the way you phrase that. And so this is the whole, like, your audience is used to you. They're used to you. They see you. They get accustomed to it. But then all of a sudden, boom, new person on screen with you. Right? It's like, whoa, wait, who's this person? So for example, last week on this particular show, I had my friend Crystal Profit on the show because we were talking about a topic that I know enough about to be dangerous, but I thought, why not go ahead and bring somebody who actually is much more of an expert in the podcasting world than I am, and bring my friend Crystal on, who literally, that's like her jam, right? She is all about podcasting. And so I brought Crystal on the show, not only to have somebody else that knows more than me, but also to provide a difference for you guys, to provide something else, to shake it up a little bit. I love how Letitia's pointing this out as pattern interrupt. So many of you tune in each week here on Wednesdays and you see my face or somebody else from StreamYard. But when you see somebody else on screen that you maybe have never seen before, it naturally probably are like, wait, who is this? Who's this person? And so that definitely, I think, is one of the awesome things about having a guest on screen. So let's see here. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to start jumping into some of my tips because, again, what Jonathan wanted to know is he wanted to know, what are the steps you take to ensure you picked the right person? So let's start talking about that a little bit. I've got some suggestions for everybody that I definitely wanted to jump into. So, but real quick, before we do that, right? Before we go too much further with that. Oh, I got to get my banner off there. Before we go too much further with that, let me kind of like future pace some of you guys that are like, wait a minute, how do I, how have I had, what kind of things are we talking about here? So the example I just gave you with Crystal was a subject matter expert. And somebody mentioned that earlier is, hey, bring on an expert, like ask who the next expert should be about whatever, right? And so one of my favorite types of guest experiences or show types that you can have that have guests involved is to bring a subject matter expert. So like I said, you know a lot about your brand, your hobby, your organization, your business, whatever it is that you're streaming about, right? But you can't know everything. You can know a lot. Like you are awesome. You are amazing. You're smart. You probably know a ton, but are you great at everything? None of us are absolutely great at everything, right? So as I mentioned, I know enough to be dangerous about podcasting. I have my own podcast myself, so I can certainly get around the conversation, but why not bring somebody who literally is an expert in podcasting? What kind of questions is your audience asking you that you might be able to dabble a little bit into that answer, but can you take a deep dive, right? Bring somebody on who can take a deep dive. So I love the idea of you thinking about topics or things that are related to what you do, meaning your audience cares and they want to know. And maybe so you teach this, right? You teach this. But what if this little thing over here and this little thing over here, if they could also learn these things, it would make this even more successful, right? So for example, let's say you're a marketing strategist. Let's say you teach, how to, do email marketing. You're an email marketing specialist. You help people with email marketing. Well, great. Are you an expert in ads, like Facebook ads and Instagram ads, which help get more eyes on those lead magnets? No. Well, then bring somebody in that's an ads expert, because if they can teach your audience how to do better ads, then that's more eyeballs on those lead magnets, right? That are going to generate leads for the email list. Now, same thing over here. Are you an expert at designing lead magnets, like ebooks and checklists and things? No. Well, bring a subject matter expert on Canva to help your audience design their lead magnets so that you can help them be more successful with their email marketing. You're an expert in email marketing, but these two things right here are also important for them to be successful all over. So bring in those subject matter experts to help take it better, right? So that's an example of you knowing what your audience needs to know that maybe you can't take that deep dive on. So look for those subject matter experts that can do that. So that's one of the best examples of a guest that you can bring into your show. Now, some other types of, guest experiences are actually interviewing your customers. So bring your customers on screen with you. Share their success. Let their success inspire more people in your audience. This is actually something that I see a lot of people do, and they do very, very well. So there's a woman that comes to mind. Her name is Amy Porterfield. She has a business on helping people create online courses. She does a really good job of showcasing some of her students who have taken her program before. And she doesn't do it in a way that's like, oh, come talk about how awesome my program is. No, she lets them tell their story. But she lets them tell their story because guess what? Their story, somebody in her audience is going to relate to it. The struggles they maybe went through, the way they approached it, but also they're going to be inspired by the success that they've had. And so when you bring a customer on to do like a case study, don't necessarily bring them on for them to talk about how great you are. I mean, of course you're great, and of course they think you're great, right? But bring them on to showcase them and their story, which will help your audience relate to them, inspire them, and then of course the fringe benefit, okay? Because you're not going to bring them on and say, hey, this person, I got them such great success. Let them tell you about it. And then I'm going to promote my thing. No, it's a fringe benefit that they're going to say, okay, now I want to buy your program, or now I want to buy your product, or whatever. So if you have a product-based business, bring people on screen, let them show their results, let them talk about how they used your products, but make it about them, right? Because you're making it about them, you're also making it about your audience. So love the idea of having customers on with case studies, but again, be a little careful with it, because don't make it about you, make it about them, right? So definitely wanted to point that one out for sure. So, other types of guest experiences that I love are panel discussions, bringing lots of people on screen with you, right? So it's easy to think about, like, we can come up with ideas all day long about people you can bring on, like one person, or, having a dual type of show, but literally having a panel discussion, which is like multiple people on screen. These are awesome, right? Now, think about this. The more people you have on screen, the more coordination it takes, and the more things can go haywire, but that's okay. I like panel discussions, especially when it's something when you need a group of experts, right? So these are great for Q&As. These are great for having conversations that maybe need a little bit of diversity to come into the conversation so that your audience can hear different perspectives. Definitely love panel discussions. Those are always a lot of fun and really great things. Now, the other type of kind of live stream guest experience you can have kind of pulls both of those into play here. And think about how can you host a mini conference or live seminar. And what this would be where you may have one person on screen at a time, but then you have one person come on and they talk about something, and then you take them down, right? And then you bring on the next guest to talk about the next topic, and then you bring them down, and then you bring on the next guest to talk about their topic, and then you bring them down. If you wanted to, you could do something like that, and then you could even end it with a panel discussion with all of your guests. So that's also a strategy in a way that you can bring guests into your stream. So definitely love, those are just some ideas that I wanted to give you guys, so that those of you that maybe haven't had guests in your streams before, or maybe haven't thought about having guests in your streams before, I wanted to kind of like give your kind of like creative juices flowing a little bit, so you can be thinking about how you can bring guests into your show, right? So the only other example that I think is pretty prevalent in the live streaming world right now is co-hosting. So having co-hosts, that's a little bit different. That's not really a guest for your show. A co-host literally like runs the show with you. They own the show with you. It's a little bit different, but that is definitely something that we're seeing a lot more popularity in. Now some of you may have some questions for me, or you may be thinking to yourself, now wait a minute, Melanie, how do I actually even bring the guests onto my show? Let me take a quick swig of water while I get ready to answer that question. Never be afraid to rehydrate while you're on video, especially when your throat is feeling a little scratchy. So that's me today. So I hope you're all here for it, right? I know Puddles is here for it. Puddles says, always stay hydrated during your streams. I need to come up with a better Puddles voice before I literally lose this gig of coming live with you guys, but it's okay. It's all right. Okay, so here's the deal. So, StreamYard makes it super easy. It's actually one of the things I love about StreamYard. And in fact, I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of people end up start using applications like StreamYard, is because it's so freaking easy to have a guest on your show. So we actually have a blog post and we have videos about how to actually do it. But I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that all of the StreamYard plans, absolutely every single StreamYard plan, will allow you to have up to 6 guests on screen, like up to 6 guests. So 1 person, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all on screen with you at the same time. Now, the professional plan will actually allow you to have up to 10 people on screen with you. That's a pretty big panel discussion. So I'm saying this because I keep seeing a lot of people using Zoom. They're using Zoom, and then they're using custom RTMP to like stream it out, and then they can't see the comments on the social media platform. And then there are people out there commenting, trying to talk to their guests in their panels, can't talk to nobody can see the comments because you're using custom RTMP. If you don't know what custom RTMP is, you're good. Like just stay right here with me, okay? Here's the deal. You can have up to 6 people on screen with you on the free and the basic plan. If your Zoom meeting or your Zoom panel discussion doesn't need more than 6 people, then you're covered, no matter even whether you're on a paid plan or not, right? And you can see comments. You can display those comments on screen. You don't have to worry about custom RTMP. Just use StreamYard. And you can have banners and tickers and all the things. You can bring your guests up. You can change the views. Now, if you need more than 6, consider that professional plan where you can have up to 10 people on screen. That's a lot of people. Now, I do see sometimes where there are people, they have these big old like parties or like, hey, let's have a confetti party or let's have this party. And they have like 20 plus people on screen. Well, not all those people are necessarily contributing. They're just all there. That's a little different. Maybe you do want to consider something like Zoom, right? But I had to say this because I keep seeing people using Zoom and I'll say, why are you using Zoom? It's not meant for streaming. It's meant for meetings. And they're like, well, so I can do interviews. I'm like, let's go. Let's have a conversation about you using StreamYard. So I wanted to get that off my chest really quick because I think that Zoom is great for a lot of things. It's intended. It's great for a lot, but it is really not intended for streaming. They just created ability to make it so that you can stream when the whole pandemic happened and people were trying to stream these things. But I'm just pointing out like, hey, honestly, StreamYard is built for this and the experience is so much better for streaming, right? They're both great platforms, but they have different purposes. So I had to say that. So I just wanted to let everybody know that no matter what plan you're on, you can have these guest experiences that I just described with you. So using StreamYard. The free plan up to 6 people, I think that's crazy generous on StreamYard, but I am not in charge of that. So if they want to be crazy generous and throw that in the free plan, I'm all for it. I'm here for it. So even if you have a $0 budget, you can use StreamYard and have these guest experiences, right? So had to get that out of there. Wanted to chat about that really fast and make sure everybody understood. So, okay. Zori says, that's me with hydrating on screen lately. I was embarrassed, but I had to do it. Don't be embarrassed. It's all good. You know what? Never be embarrassed to do something human like drinking water, right? It really is okay. Now, you can put an overlay up while you need to take a quick drink of water, but never be afraid to be yourself on screen, right? Ever, ever, ever. Okay, let's see here. I want to check in on the comments before we start jumping into my tips and my best practices when it comes to finding that perfect guest, because that is exactly what we're talking about today. Today, we are talking about how to get that perfect guest for your live stream. Now, I will say, so, John posted this question. He said, if you look at the bottom here, he said, what steps do you take to ensure you picked the perfect guest? Well, here's the whole thing I want to make sure I point out to you guys is we're going to be talking about some steps you can take to pick a perfect guest, but picking is just part of the process. To truly have that this is why I like these juicy questions. I like it when someone asks a question and like, here's the quick answer, but then I'm like, we're going down here. We're going to go deep with this one, right? And so, yes, I'm going to talk about ways to pick or find how to get those guests, but having the perfect guest may not have as much to do with picking them as it has to do with how you prepare them, right? So we're going to talk about some of that stuff today. So yes, there is, of course, the experience of picking guests and those things. But again, we're going to talk about picking and also some strategies to ensure that you are actually going about the proper method. So if you're just joining us today, this is our Ask StreamYard show, and we are featuring John's question, which is about picking guests. So that's what we've talked about. So far I have talked about, why it's important to have guests on in your shows. It does increase engagement. It can actually expand your reach. And also, I just talked about some show types about what it might look like to have guests in your shows. So now what we're going to talk about is I'm actually going to go into some strategies about finding those people, because that is definitely a question I think a lot of people have, is how can you actually find people for your streams? And so here's the deal. Finding guests for your streams is, let me actually back up, because before we find a guest, there is something that is really, 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 really important. And so if you're multitasking, definitely kind of like, okay, hold on. I need to hear this from Mel. If you're multitasking at all, if you're kind of half listening, this is going to be the most important thing I say to you all day in today's stream about this topic. The most important. You've got to ensure that those guests that you're looking for are aligned to your brand and your audience. Okay? This is the most important thing. So before you even go looking for a guest, you have to make sure you understand this. And so there's lots of dimensions to our brands, okay? But there's 3 core dimensions that I want to talk about that you've got to make sure that you understand, but also that you understand your audience's dimensions as well. And these are your values, your style, and your standards. Okay. So let's break this down a little bit. Your values are like what's important to you, right? Like what are the things that are important to you? And I don't just mean like your values, like what you believe in and what you're teaching, your values. Like for example, one example of many is there are some brands that are faith-based brands, meaning they have certain, core values around their belief about, their Christianity, for example, being one, right? Now, if that is a piece of your brand, right? And it's not a piece of all brands by any means, but if that is a core piece of your brand, well, then you would probably want to make sure that the guests that you're bringing on are aligned. Now, please note here, I am not saying that they match. They do not have to be a match. They just have to be aligned, right? The conversation, the reason you're bringing these guests on have to have some sort of alignment to the values of your brand, right? There's got to be something around it, whether they are helping, diversify the values or whether they are bringing a separate perspective so that you guys can have a diversified conversation, right? But again, that guest needs to know what your values are and they need to understand the values of your audience. And there needs to be some alignment there in some way, shape, or form. Okay? So again, I did not say they need to match. Please note that. They do not need to match. Same thing goes for style. Your style is not just the purple lights in the background and the lava lamps and the spiky hair or whatever, right? Your style is simply like, your style comes in many, many, many facets. Yes, there's a look and feel to your show. And yes, there's a look and feel to the way you dress and the way you literally style yourself, but also your voice. Is your show a comedy show? That's a style, right? That's a style of show. Is your show a very serious show? Is your show, really inspiring with, think of the style of your show. Your guest, once again, doesn't have to match your style, but they need to align to it. It needs to fit somewhere into that puzzle, okay? Now, the last piece I want to talk about are your standards. Now, your standards are how we do things. It's the way we go about it. So a standard, now, again, everybody is going to be different. And I want to, before I even go here, I guess I feel a big need to say this. Everybody's core dimensions of their brands, that they do not have to be a certain way. You, right here, you, highlight right there, are in charge of these elements. Your own values, styles, standards are up to you and nobody else. Okay? You own your business. You own yourself. You own your personal brand. You are who you are. All of that is you. Don't look at something and think, oh, well, I'm supposed to have this value. Oh, my style is supposed to be like that. Oh, I'm supposed to have big bright lights, big LED lights and RGB lights in my background because that's popular right now. If that's not your style, don't do that. Okay? You have to be your own self. Same thing with your standards. If your standard is all over if you don't care the level of quality of somebody's, video camera and all that stuff, that's totally fine. That's completely fine, right? But some people, and this is also completely fine, have standards. Like, for example, let me point this out. There are going to be some situations where you might even hear about a person will literally, like a company, for example, when they have people come in as a guest, sometimes they literally send them a kit. They will send them a light, a microphone, and a camera. I've seen this. This happens. And it's because they have a standard. But what I love about the fact that they are literally sending a complimentary, here's your kit of stuff, is that they have a standard and they are not expecting their guest to rise to that standard. They are helping their guest meet that standard, right? So they're not putting it on their guest. They have a standard here, but also part of their values is maybe to ensure that they don't eliminate anybody based on the fact that they can't afford this standard or they don't know how. That's probably part of their values. They're sending them this so that they can meet that standard that they expect. Right? So all of this matters because, again, all these things kind of come into play. I hear a lot where someone will say to me, oh, I had a guest and their audio was so bad and they were on their like mobile phone and they weren't even using a tripod. And I always say, well, did you let them know what your expectation was in regards to that? And like, well, no, I just assumed. Okay, well, shame on you. So the reason why I'm pointing this out is because one of the other best practices is that you set expectations with your guest, right? And so make sure you have all of this settled before you do that, because the values, the style, and the standards are things you've got to think about when it comes to what you're looking for, what you want in your show, and also there's a step in ensuring that your guests understand these items. Okay. So this is absolutely the most core piece of this whole process. So again, if you leave today's stream, if you walk away, if you're getting ready to go somewhere, this is the most important thing I wanted to point out today. This is so key, such a core piece of your success when it comes to having guests on your show. So hopefully everybody is with me. I hope you all get it. So say it with me. Values, style, standards. Values, style, standards. Type it in the comments. Values, style, and standards. Boom, boom, boom. You are going to be thinking about these things when you go for it. So for sure. I want to make sure I'm checking on you guys in the comments again because I just went on a little bit of a tangent. And so I wanted to make sure that we're all good. Okay, cool. Looks like we got some people. Love Melanie's mic drop moments. It was kind of a bit of a mic drop moment. Was it? I almost said life drop moment. Mic drop moment, I guess. Sometimes I get really passionate about certain things. And so it's very important. That was something I really wanted to make sure that I let everybody understand for sure. Okay, let me check you guys. Well, hello, Wabia. I bet it's Wabia. That's a fun one. I love it. Okay. All right, let me see here. I'm checking on the comments, making sure I don't have any crazy things. Okay. Yes. Awesome stuff here. Okay. So Zori says, this is great points, Melanie. I had one guest that gave me less views than usual. I've just hit my second month on this YouTube and the tips are good. Gold. Good. Awesome. Super excited that you're definitely getting value out of that. Okay. So Michael, where have you been, my friend? It's great to see you here. It's great to see you live with us today. One thing that is great about StreamYard is the engagement, bringing comments on screen for the guests. Otherwise, just doing it. Yeah. So this goes back to what I was saying about one of the benefits of using StreamYard for your interviews and your guest experiences is that you can bring the comments up on screen. Your guest inside the StreamYard studio can also see the comment feed. So even if you don't bring it on screen, they can actually see what's being commented, which is actually great. And many guests want that. In fact, if you guys watched the Level Up StreamYard Summit, so Gary Vaynerchuk was our keynote and we brought him up and he did his thing. And so StreamYard is like, Hopin, which is our parent company. They purchased StreamYard. They literally took the StreamYard platform and it's like inside the Hopin virtual event software. So essentially the experience of your guests and everything else and your panelists is very similar to the way it works in StreamYard. I mean, it literally is StreamYard inside this platform. And one of the things I thought was so cool was that Gary Vaynerchuk, as he was talking, and right before I did my Q&A with him, which we had some questions kind of, we had them ready for him. He was reading the comments, like he was reading that comment feed inside the studio. And I thought that was so great I think that's great for your guests to be able to see the comments because they can get that pulse check of the audience as well. When you're using something like Zoom and you're streaming with that, they can't see the comments that are happening out there on social media. So definitely a big thing. Thank you, Test Channel. Right? At least we got it. We got it. Values, style, standards. Jim says values, style, standards. Excellent. Values, standard, style. Value, standard. Yes. Thank you. I wanted to make sure that this was all hitting home for you guys. So it looks like it is. Okay, good. All right. So here we go. We are going to absolutely keep going here. So, all right, here we go. Let me talk about what I was getting ready to talk about, how to find the guests for your live streams, which is one of the big things that was all about this particular question, is that many people want to know, how do you even find good guests? Like, how do you find the perfect guest? So somebody said it earlier, and I so apologize. They talked about building relationships before you do have a guest on your show. And this is something I absolutely love, because I think that one of the best ways to find guests for your shows is to leverage your network. The first step I'm going to tell anyone when they ask me this question is, well, leverage your existing network. Who do you know right now that could be a potential guest? Who do you know right now that could connect you to a potential guest? Right? There's two elements here. So think about your network and think about who might be a good fit, but then also go ahead and start talking to people. Say, hey, I'm looking, my audience, I'm going to use the example I used earlier about being an email marketing specialist, but you're not a specialist in social media ads, and you're not a specialist in graphic design. You're a specialist in email marketing and funnel and lead generation and using email to build a list and to nurture a list and blah, 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 the things, right? But you're not you're not an expert in ads or design. So start to talk about that. Start to say, hey, who do you know that is really great at ads? I'm looking for somebody to come on my show to talk to my audience and to teach them about, starting ads to leverage, to build their email list. Start asking for referrals, which is really a big piece of this. I wanted to point out that your existing network is going to be the first place you want to go. Don't just start blind out there. Find who in your network that you know, because connections and relationships are going to be one of the best ways for you to find good guests. Because here's why I say this. Look for your existing network, people that know you and you're naturally going to have better synergy on screen, okay? You're just naturally going to have better synergy on screen. So look at your existing network. If you're lucky and fortunate and you're like, oh my God, I have like 20 ideas for guests out of my network of people and they can all come on my show. Woo! You have a great start. Maybe you're somebody who's like, ooh, I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of friends, but they don't really do what I do and I don't know. Okay, well, then we got to work a little harder. Then we're going to leverage your network and say, do you know anyone? Can you connect me to somebody? The reason why I want you to start with your existing network is because if you ask a friend, hey, do you know anybody that does this? Or, hey, everybody, I'm looking for someone to help me with XYZ. All these people that know you. They probably know what's important to you. They get your style and they know what your standards are, right? So they're less likely to recommend somebody. So, for example, if there's something that's really a core value to you and your business and your brand, and they know that, they're not going to recommend somebody that has a complete opposite public view than you. They're just not, right? Most likely. So that is why I say leveraging your network. It's a good safety net. It's a great place to start, right? So leverage your existing network. Reach out to people. Start asking, if they will be on your show, but also put it out there that you want people to come and do that. Letitia says, your tribe is your vibe, which is totally true, right? Totally true. Walter says, sometimes you can look within your comments and subscribers of your YouTube channel. So this was the next place that I was going to recommend, is that you have your network. So when I say your network, it means your connections and your connections, right? The other element of your network is your audience, right? Now, your audience, you may not have as much of an intimate relationship with them as you do like your tribe, your network, right? But they know you, they know your show, they know what you do, right? And also when you involve your audience, they're a part of what's happening. So anytime we can involve our audience in getting questions, finding information about, hey, what do you guys want to know? What do you want me to teach you? Anytime they can suggest stuff, they feel very connected to you. I also love the idea of involving your audience in just what you do and how you're improving your streams. Just about a week ago, I did a live stream and I was picking sound effects. And I was like, I let my audience members help me pick the perfect foghorn sound, which I still don't feel like we found the perfect foghorn sound. So we're still on the hunt for the perfect foghorn sound. But I involved them and they loved it. So then when I go play the foghorn sound on my show, guess what's going to happen? They're going to feel, they'll be like, oh, I remember when she did that. I was in the comments helping her with that. Right? It's the same when they recommend a guest for you or they talk about topics that they want you to bring guests on for. You do it, you bring it, they feel they feel like, oh, they heard me. They did what I asked. So again, that's building a relationship with your audience too. But I love the idea of looking at your audience as well. Now, the other thing I was going to say is be out there. So be networking. Okay. So if you were looking for somebody to hire to come into your business in your local community, well, if you were not, I mean, if nobody knows who you are, they're less likely to apply. Be out there, be visible online, and put yourself out there. So get involved in Facebook groups, get involved in communities, and be part of the conversation. Like, don't be sitting back, as like a hermit out there, because you're not going to have those relationships. So again, build relationships, do networking. So I always say this, I know it sounds crazy, but like, if you are wanting to expand your network, then you've got to do networking. You've got to be putting yourself out there. And so definitely be leveraging that. The other thing I was going to say is be involved in Facebook groups. If you're brand new to this and you're like trying to build your network, then get involved in some Facebook communities that are surrounded about some topics that are around what you do and what you talk about, and be involved in those conversations. For example, our StreamYard community, we have a Facebook group. So if you're not in it, definitely get in there. And it's about it. We get so many great questions and so many helpful people chime in. So, like there are names that pop up. There are names that show up in these comments feeds. There are names when I see somebody commented on it, I know that Mike from Never Let the Machines Win is an example. I'll pick on him from Ontario, Canada, Niagara Falls. He's always so helpful, right? He's always super helpful in comments. He answers questions. We have another woman named Jennifer. I can never pronounce her last name. I need to actually literally figure out how to pronounce it. She's always so helpful in the comments. These people don't work for StreamYard. They're just super helpful people. I feel like if I had a question or if I wanted to reach out to them and say, hey, who do you know that does this? Because I know what they do. I feel very comfortable doing that. And I feel like I can trust them because they show up. They're out there. They're networking. They're just being involved. So that's the other thing I'll say is if you're wanting to expand your network, you got to do that networking. And that's one of the best ways you can do it is get into these groups and be helpful, answer questions, be inspiring, right? Okay, let me see here. Alex says, great advice. Good. I'm glad, Alex, that this is going well. All right, let me see here. I'm checking in on you guys, making sure we're good. Cynthia's here as well from Purgatory Paranormal of New York. She likes puddles. She's a fan of puddles. I'm glad that, Cynthia, you like puddles. So, okay, what's the next thing I want to talk to you about? All right, so let me make sure I didn't miss anything in that real quick when it comes to, the other thing I wanted to say was let's talk about reaching out to those guests. Now, again, if you're just now joining us, we are talking about selecting the perfect guest for your live stream. Okay, but we're about to segue into how to actually ensure that it's a good guest experience. But selecting the perfect guest is definitely one of those things that I want to make sure that we talk about. A couple other things that I think are very important. If you see someone, so if you do want to reach out, like I mentioned that whole, like if you see somebody and they're active and you want to reach out to them, like Letitia Campbell, for example, I'm going to pick on Letitia, or anybody else that we've got here in the comments that are dropping amazing information like Walter, right? If you're like, well, they seem like they know what they're talking about and you want to reach out to them. Okay. Let's talk about that process. Make sure that when you reach out to them, you've done a little bit of research first. I know I even saying it sounds like, well, duh. Seriously, I can't tell you how many times people have reached out to me and they've said, I think you'd be so great to have on my show. I wanted to see, I'm like, awesome. And then I basically say, well, why do you think I'd be a great fit for your show? To come and figure out that they know nothing about me. They don't even know what I do. They just saw me somewhere or somebody told them to contact me, but they did not do their research. I can always tell when this happens. Now, the reason why this is important for a couple reasons is one, you want to vet them out. Look them up online. Like, let's be honest, right? Like, they may be one way in this group, but then when you go check out their stuff, you may be like, whoa, that person's style is not what I'm looking for. Like, or their values are probably not aligned to my values, right? Or again, think about the standards that you're looking for. And if they're not, matching or aligning with the standards you want, then do your research first. Don't waste your time and don't waste their time. Okay. So do that a little bit of research first. If you go to do research and you can't find anything about them online, you can't find any content, you can't figure out those things, they might not be a good guest for a live video. Think about that. Okay. Not every referral you get. So somebody says, oh, you should talk to so-and-so. They may know them personally across the coffee shop table, but if you can't find anything about them online or see anything they've done, they most likely don't have a lot of experience with social media content, with doing videos and whatnot. That's something to consider. That doesn't mean that they don't. It just, again, do your research, right? Be thinking about what you're looking for. So check them out online first. The other thing is that when you do reach out to them, let them know why you're reaching out. Let them know why you think they would be a good fit for your show. And lastly, let them know a little bit about your show and you and your audience. Don't wait for that last part. Okay. Again, we aren't wasting time here. We don't want to be wasting your time or their time. So go ahead when you reach out, again, let them know why you're reaching out. Let them know why you think they'd be a good fit and be specific because you've done your research. And then last, and also quote anybody that's referred them. Like, hey, Christian said I should reach out to you. He's a mutual friend of ours, blah, blah, blah. Lastly, make sure you give them a little bit of a Cliff's Note version of you, your business, whatever your content's about, and your audience, right? Go ahead and initially put that information when you reach out to those people. This is, again, because if they don't respond or if they say no, then you're not wasting your time and you're not wasting their time. So that's something that was really, really important. I want you to provide a really good amount of information there when it comes to that stuff. So definitely make sure. Square Table Degenerates podcast says, don't sell your soul to get monetized either. Stay the course. Great point, right? Definitely a great point. Okay, let me see here. So Mike says, never let a guest damage your brand. Even during your show, it's your show. Maintain control. Very, very true. Very great point. And definitely something I wanted to point out is that, you're going to also have people that reach out to you. You're going to have people that come to you and say, I want to be a guest on your show. You're going to get pitched. Now, you're going to know when that person is genuinely pitching you, like reaching out to you, and it's literally them versus some PR agency they've hired that literally is sending you some form email or some form DM that they send to all of the other 100 people that they reached out to that week because that's their job. Is that PR agency is getting paid per how many, guests they get booked. They don't know you. They don't know your stuff. And you'll know. And you know what? It's not worth your time to respond to a form letter. It's not. You're worth more than that. You're worth the time for them to spend to do the research and to actually have a human really, really, really sending that to you and it be personal and one-off versus some form letter. There you go. Ding. Make sure you hear that. So the other thing that I was going to say about this is you're going to get these requests. If you get a request and somebody says, I want to come on your show, do exactly what I just described. Do everything I talked about. Make sure the alignment is there, right? Make sure you've done your research. Go check them out. Do a little bit of homework. And then I want you to remember this. Come in close. Come in close. It's okay to say no. Did you hear what I said? It's okay to say no. You can say no to people. I've had this happen. I've had people that I've worked with in the past that are like, oh, I just felt so bad. And I brought them on and it was just awkward. And it was just, it was like, they didn't even talk. Like my audience they talked about stuff my audience didn't care about at all. To Mike's point, it is your show. You are in control of your brand. And so you need to remember that it is okay to say no to people. It is okay to say, either I don't think it's a good fit or now's not a good time. Let's revisit this in 6 months, whatever your reasons are. Do not be afraid to say no. Do not let that, I hate saying no to people too. I've got that heart too. Don't let that get in the way of you maintaining the momentum that you've been building for however long you've been building it. Okay. All right. I have a lot of points today with my little thing going on. I don't know what that's about, but it's what's happening today. So that's what's going on today, and that's what we're talking about. So Walter says, what has helped me also is being interviewed by someone else. Being able to sit in that seat helps you to understand the guest selection process. I absolutely love that Walter is bringing this up because when I talk about having this, one of the things I always talk about is the other, I guess, fringe benefit that I didn't mention in the beginning of having guests on your show is that, and this is the other tip I had, is you're more likely to get asked to be a guest on somebody else's show. So when I'm looking for people to bring on my show, the other thing that I have in my notes here is when you're looking and doing your research, if you can see where they have that they have guests on their own show, or that they are live streaming, they have guests, guess what? They're that much more likely to probably be a very good guest because they get it. This is what Walter's point is too. He's kind of talking about on the flip side. So one of the other ways to select a good guest is selecting somebody who you can tell has experience being a guest. So that's the other thing to be looking for. So, but I love that Walter talks about this. Push yourself out there. Go be a guest on other people's shows. You will learn how to be a better host and have guests as well. So I love that he said that. Definitely really good stuff there. Let me see here. All right. I'm going to, let me see, checking on the comments. Okay. So Zori says, that happened to me. That's the guest with low views. Where were you 2 months ago? I do want you to keep this in mind though. So Zori, let me talk to you for a second. Don't always look at the metrics, because even somebody that, here's the thing, think about your objectives. If your objective to bringing a particular type of guest on the show, or if your standard, again, this goes back to standards. One of the elements of your standards could be you're looking for guests that have large followers, large audience, a certain type of clout, a certain level of popularity, right? That can be a standard. And again, that's okay. Keep in mind that that is just one piece. I can tell you that I have had people on my show that have a lot of followers that were not a good guest. So don't just look at the followers as a metric that they're going to be a good guest. That can absolutely be one of your standards, meaning like there's certain goals you have, there's certain types of people you're trying to bring to your show, because again, you know your show, you know your audience, you know your brand, and you're in charge of that. But also keep in mind that just because they have a ton of followers, they may not be a good guest. It's happened. It happens all the time. Many of you maybe have experienced that where you're like, oh my gosh, I thought this person was going to be a good. I've watched live streams where there's a person and you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, they're a big deal. They have, 800,000 YouTube subscribers, or they have 250,000 YouTube subscribers or more. And they were terrible. Not everybody's good at being a guest on somebody else's show. It's just one of those things. So again, do your research, see if you can find that stuff. So the low subscriber count, heck, you guys, I don't even have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I think I'm pretty fun, right? So also don't forget about there may be somebody that has a certain level of expertise and they can show up for your audience, but maybe they don't have a huge audience yet, or maybe their business is a little bit more behind the scenes. That's okay too. So, but again, back to Zori's point, if you are looking for something in particular around those metrics, that's up to you. And those are your own standards that you own and control. Okay, let me see here. So Square Table, Degenerates podcast. Yes, in my experience, being on other shows will get you 5 to 10 subs or so, give or take. I actually agree that when you're a guest on somebody else's show, often you will actually see an uptick in your own subscriber count, right? You will see that. The same goes for when you have a guest on your show. This has happened for me, at least, is that when I have a guest on my show, then as I said, they're going to share their show with your show with their audience. All of a sudden, I now get an uptick as well because their audience, people that have never met me in their life before, are coming over to my world now. That certainly, so it goes both ways, which is actually great. You're mutually helping. You're helping each other. It's a mutually beneficial situation. Let's see. James Hicks is in the house. What's up, James? Okay, let's talk about the next thing I wanted to share with you guys. And we're going to get into some best practices. So the best practices for that guest experience, right? So let's go into this right now. Oh my gosh, it's already 12 o'clock. We've been talking for an hour already. Man, this is just a deep topic. I went on a couple tangents. I kind of had to give you guys some of my big advice pieces here, but some of the best practices that I want to share with you, we talked about some of them. In fact, Walter shared some really good tips as well. Mike had a couple of good tips. You all have had some really good ideas here about this, but I wanted to talk a little bit about this because as I said, so today's question was about literally selecting. If you read John's last sentence, he said, so my question to all you content creators is, what steps do you use to ensure you picked the perfect guest? And so I am pointing out that it's not always about picking the perfect guest. Hear me. You can pick the perfect guest, or you can think you've picked the perfect guest, and they may be awesome at being a guest on live video, and they may be a perfect fit for your audience. But if you don't go through a few best practices, it may not be a good experience. And so I wanted to talk about that really quick as well. Okay, hold on. Let me take a sip of water. There we go. We're staying hydrated today, right? We're staying hydrated. Okay, so here's the deal. The first thing that's really important is, outside of all the stuff I talked about when it was aligning it, let's just assume you've done all the stuff we talked about before, which I'll do a recap as well. One of the things that's really important is that you prepare your guest in advance. You can't just say, hey, I want you to come talk about topic XYZ. And then we'll just use these. Come talk about Facebook ads on my show. My audience needs to learn about it. And then like, okay, next Monday at 11. Great. I'll send you a link. And then they show up at 11 o'clock and you're ready to rock and roll. I do not recommend this. Even if it's someone you know, someone you follow, someone you like literally, if they live in the same house as you and that's your process, I do not recommend that. I 100% recommend you have a pre-show meeting where you go through a few things together. The biggest thing that you need to do is actually talk about your agenda. You need to have an agreed upon agenda. Because think about it, Facebook ads, great. That could be like 100 different bullets on a piece of paper. Like, meaning there are 100 different things they could talk about when it comes to ads. So what is it that your audience needs to know? So again, prep them with your audience. Has your audience been dabbling in ads? Has your audience never done an ad in their life? Does your audience even need to know where they can do these ads? Like, the reason why this is important is because that person who can talk about Facebook ads can probably talk about getting started, basic, getting professional, and then like advanced. So you need to make sure they have an understanding of where do they fall. So again, this comes into that pre-show meeting that you're going to have with them. Go through your audience. Make sure they understand your audience. Go through the things that are not okay. First thing I'll say, this is the most obvious one, but you probably have others, is are cuss words okay? Are you okay with them using cuss words in your stream? Do not assume that they know the answer to this. Do not assume this. If you know that they have a mouth and you don't want them to bring that mouth to the table, it is your responsibility to tell them that. And if they say, well, that's not my style, I just can't do that, then at that point you have to make a decision, right? You have to make a decision based on what's important to you, your values, and your standards. So make sure you know that. Do not skip that conversation. What is allowed and what's not allowed. Do not make assumptions here. So having that pre-meeting checklist or pre-meeting conversation is very, very helpful. Don't wait until right before. I know a lot of people will say, oh yeah, I always have them join the stream, 30 minutes before we go live so that we can go through that stuff. I also don't recommend that unless this is somebody that you literally have a relationship with or that you've done stuff with before. I 100% make sure you do this in advance, because guess what? If they show up 30 minutes before you're supposed to go live and you've already scheduled it and you've announced that this person's coming live and all of a sudden they show up and they had this stuff prepared and you're like, oh my gosh, that's not going to work. My audience, that'll be way over their head. Well, it's 30 minutes before you're live. It's too late. So again, set these expectations in advance. So have a pre-show meeting. Now, a pro tip for you is that you should also do a tech check with your guest. Again, so that maybe your guest isn't used to doing this before. Maybe they don't know that they need a tripod for their phone and headphones so that there's no echo, right? So have a tech check. I recommend that you set up a demo stream with StreamYard, meaning you just create a stream. You don't actually even you pick a fake destination, but you never go live. Invite them to that. You could also do this by selecting record only, but invite them to that. Make that your video call. That way, you're literally coming into StreamYard. You're never going to go live in this pre-show meeting. You're just letting them, you're doing the tech check. They're also inside the studio. They're like, oh, cool, this is neat. Oh, so I can share my screen? Oh, fantastic. Like maybe they've never been a guest in StreamYard before. So I say use the platform to have your meeting. It's like literally a free meeting software too, if you have never thought about it that way, but it literally is. Bring them on screen and run through how the show is going to go, meaning talk about the agenda, talk about your show flow. What can do you start with a countdown? Are you going to start by yourself on screen and then introduce them and then bring them on screen? Explain that process to them so they know what to expect. Do not expect them to know like that on their own. If you're going to start the stream with both you on screen, make sure they know that, right? So go through that show flow with them while you're in this meeting as well, while you're doing not only going through the expectations, the agenda, the show flow, but also you're conducting a tech check. Another thing that you might need to do is coach your guest. Again, you can pick a great guest. They may be awesome, but you may need to coach them a little bit. Coach them. If they're like, sitting down here in their chair, like this, hanging out like, hey, what's up? We're going to have an awesome show. I'm going to come talk about ads. And you're like, hey, you know what? You can do it in a very subtle way. You could be like, what's actually probably, I think what will actually work better is, let's make sure we're both on screen kind of fitting the same size. Can I just have you maybe just get closer to your camera, sit up a little bit more? Oh, sure. Yeah. This, as Mike said earlier, this is your show. You own the show. Do not let somebody else's difference in style, if it doesn't meet your standard, then you've got to own that. So during this pre-tech check, you can also make sure they understand some things about framing and, get closer to your microphone, or, hey, do you have some headphones with a microphone on them? Okay, cool. We're going to want to make sure we use those. The audio quality is going to be a lot better. It's going to make you look and sound better. I want to make sure you look and sound your best. So definitely one of those things that is important, right? You own this. You go through these things with them. Do not expect them to figure this stuff out themselves, right? Now, again, if you've had them on before, you may not have to do this every time, right? So definitely important to do. Alex says, I set up a pre-interview stream in the studio. Yes, 100%, right? 100%. So I definitely think that you want to make sure you've got to figure that out yourself. Okay, so people who don't like swearing. So Swear Table Degenerates podcast says, people don't like swearing? I don't know. I don't think every word needs to be an F-bomb, but you have to allow casual swearing like we are all adults here, right? So this is totally okay if that's your standard, right? Again, your standards may not be the exact same as everybody else's. There are lots of people that are they are very much against, swearing, and that's okay. But then there's a lot of people that are totally fine with it. They don't care. There's certain things to think about with that stuff, but literally, then there's other people I know that they don't swear in their own content. Like they don't ever swear, but then they have certain guests and they're like, they're okay with their guests swearing. Again, this is all based on you, your audience, and your standards and the way you want to manage it. Seriously, 100%. But just my point was just make sure you actually have that conversation, right? Make sure you have that conversation with them. Let me see here. Okay. What was the other thing I wanted to tell you guys about this? Oh, here's one that's really interesting. That is, okay. Also, there's two things here. Have an exit strategy. So as you know, there are times when you could go through all this stuff. You've picked somebody that you think is going to be awesome. And then you've gone through all this stuff. You're like, I did everything Melanie told me to on that Ask StreamYard episode. And then they show up and maybe somebody in the comments asked a question that they just were like way passionate about, and they went on this big tangent, or they were talking about this, and all of a sudden they started going way over here, right? You got to be ready to reel them in. So definitely make sure that you're ready to reel people in, have a process, have a strategy. One of my favorite strategies for this, now it doesn't mean every guest is going to be in tune with this. Something else that you can tell your guests when you're going through the pre-show stuff with them is say, hey, I'm probably going to do a couple different things. When I ask you a question, or when you're talking, I may go full screen to you. And then you say, and then, like when if we're getting kind of low on time, or if, I think you're about done, I'll bring us both back on screen. Definitely let them know that when you're both back on screen, that's like a little bit of a prompt, like, okay, wrap it up, right? That is a great way. Bring it back, wrap it up. That's a great way to put both of you on screen, come back to you on screen, and that's their signal like, okay, I gotta get moving. You can also use words like, all right, I gotta bring us back. All right, that was great, super passionate, but I gotta bring us back to today's topic. Okay, and use that kind of stuff. The other thing is that set a time expectation with your guest. So say, hey, we'll go for about, I'll do about a 10-minute thing here, and then I'll have you on. We'll go for about 30 minutes. If we go a little bit over, that's okay. I'd rather not go over like more than 40 minutes or an hour, 2 hours, whatever your time frame is, right? Make sure you set that standard. Also ask your guest, do you have a hard stop? You do not want to assume that because you're good with going over, that they're okay with going over. So that's also a great thing. Make sure you both have a very good understanding about time. This is also another thing that you're going to use if you need to kind of get the interview cut, get it back. You're going to say, all right, we're getting low on time here. We've got time for one more question. Or, all right, I got 2 questions here. There's 3 questions I really want to get to, but we're getting close to our time limit here. I know you've got things to do. I've got things to do. Let's make sure, if you could just really quickly answer these last 3 questions. That most people are pretty good with that stuff, and they're going to be okay with that, right? They're going to be okay with that. So those are some prompts. Have that exit strategy. Have that agreed upon timeline too. So those were the best practices I wanted to cover with you guys. Do you guys have any more questions? Any more things? All right. Let me see here. Yeah. So Christian says, try and respect a hard stop, but also make sure you build a buffer into your broadcast. 100%, right? Like 100%. And I think that you have to have a buffer because you just never know what's going to happen. So let's say their hard stop is 45 minutes. Well, then you need to plan for 30 minutes because again, let there be a buffer there, right? So make sure you've got that time because your audience may show up and have they may have the best questions ever and you want to make sure you accommodate them. So make sure you've got that flexibility. The only other thing I was going to say when it comes to guests is that let the conversation do this. Okay? Maybe you had these 5 questions that you want to ask, and understand this. That person is live with you and you have an audience that is also live with you. So if your audience starts asking all these questions about this, let the conversation do that. Do not be too rigid in your agenda and in your agenda. Let the conversation kind of do this. What I don't recommend is letting the conversation do this. We don't want that, right? Now, there are times when that might make sense and that might be okay. Again, goes back to your show. If you have a show and literally the style of your show is none of that. There's no agenda. It's just like, hey, we're coming on, we're having a conversation. That's your style. That means your style is like that. Your agenda is like that. So definitely be thinking about that. Just know, again, goes back to understanding and having a mutual understanding. So yes, ebb and flow. Did you guys like that? Ebb and flow, ebb and flow. What does Puddles have to say about ebbing and flowing? Ebb and flow, ebb and flow. You guys, StreamYard should have never have sent me this. I don't know. I've never even brought the whole I never even brought Puddles into my streams before, but today he's made an appearance and apparently he's a character in my show now today. So there you go. Okay, let me see here. I'm looking for some questions related to today. Let me see. I saw something about RTMP. So Morphle, I will answer this question really quickly. I need Instagram as a custom RTMP. Not going to happen until Instagram changes their rules. So it's actually against Instagram's policy to use a platform like StreamYard to stream to it. So there are people out there doing it and breaking rules. Be very careful about it because it's against their policy. So not going to happen until they change their rules and let us start doing that. So there you go. Okay, so you guys, let's do a super quick recap. So I want to make sure that we do that because this was a deep one. This was a juicy topic. There was a lot to cover. And so I do want to make sure that, the other thing I wanted to share with you guys really quick, I almost forgot. It's so good, is that I'm posting this for, let me get that posted correctly. One second, guys. So, guys and gents and ladies and gentlemen and all the people, here's the deal. We have an awesome video, actually, that Kirk Nugent did for us. That show flow stuff, preparing your guest. Oh my gosh, this video is so good. So if you're literally like, I'm not really sure how to go about that, this video is so great. It goes through all kinds of things. I'm going to post it to Facebook and to to YouTube. So definitely check out that video that Kirk did for us. It's super good. I want to make sure that you guys have that resource for us. It's over there on the YouTube channel. So check it out. It's a really good one. So, okay. The other thing that we wanted to do is do a recap. But today we talked about we had a question posted by John. And again, this is our Ask StreamYard show. So if you've got questions, you definitely want to use the Ask StreamYard hashtag. And we just might grab it. Christian and I are reviewing questions all the time. And we like to pick those ones like today where we can go really deep with them. And so John wanted to talk about having guests on your shows, and he wanted to know how to pick that perfect guest. Like, what are the steps that you take? And so that's what we talked about today for, the actual Ask StreamYard show. So let's do a quick recap as we get going here. So here's the deal. Align your values, your style, and your standards. I talked about this. I said if this is the only thing you take away from today's stream, this is the most important thing. When it comes to having guests on your show, picking the perfect guest, all of those things, 100%, the most important thing is to make sure you have aligned your values, your style, and your standards. They do not have to match or mimic. They just need to be aligned. You need to have an understanding. They need to have an understanding, right? The other thing I said about picking a perfect guest is leveraging your network, leveraging your own network for referrals, whether that be somebody that you know directly or they know someone, right? So first start with your own network. Build relationships. Walter brought that up. He said, build relationships with them. Start to, network a little bit. Get to know them. It's best to build that relationship first before you just reach out to someone cold that you literally have no referral from or connection to. So start to build that network up so that you can leverage your network. And then the other thing I said was look for guests who have experience. So when you're doing your research and checking them out, look for people who actually have been a guest on someone else's show before, whether it be a live video or even a podcast, right? So that means they probably have some experience with it. You certainly want to try to find these types of people, but you may not everyone's going to have experience, and that's okay. The key point here is that if they don't have a lot of experience, you may need to do a little bit more work on your part to make sure that they meet the standard that you're looking for. And so that's what's important there. And then of course, do a tech check and set expectations. This is so key when it comes, you could pick somebody great for your show, but if you don't do that tech check and set those expectations about the agenda, the show flow, what is going to be the topic and also the timing, then you may be missing the mark, as well as ensure the expectations are set around your values, your style, and your standards. And if there's anything that is not allowed, for example, cuss words, that's always the big one, swearing, all those types of things. And then the last thing I just really wanted to make sure that you all understand and that you take home with you is that it's okay to say no. There's nothing wrong with having an initial meeting, talking with somebody, thinking that they're going to be somebody, that's going to be a great person for your audience. And then after you have the meeting, kind of like, ooh, I'm not so sure this is a good fit anymore. Be okay to say no at any point in the process. 100%. The same thing goes for when people ask you to be on their show. So, make sure that you have that kind of in your head ahead of time. I certainly recommend that going into the conversation, have it in your head. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say no. Because if you go into it with high expectations, like it's going to be great, then all of a sudden you're less likely to be like, oh, I don't know about this. Just understand it's okay to say no at any point in time. As Mike from Never Let the Machines Win pointed out, honestly, it's your show. And so if it's a really bad situation and you skipped these steps, then that's on you, right? That's on you. So never be afraid to say no, because it's really, really important that you own that. You own that experience for your audience. So you can go pick great people, but you've got to ensure that it's a good experience. That's the whole point. So picking people is only part of the process, which is what I really wanted to point out to everybody today to make sure that you all understood. So there you have it. So again, this was the Ask StreamYard show. We talked about selecting the perfect guest for your live stream. We sent John a t-shirt and we took a deep dive with his question today, and it was a lot of fun. So we do this every Wednesday. The Ask StreamYard show is every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So next week, we're back here live again, and we will be here at 11 a.m. Eastern time, and we're going to be talking about live streaming on the go. So like I'm at my computer, I'm in my office, my studio, whatever you want to call it. This is my setup. This is where I am. But what if I'm on vacation? What if I wanted to go live off the golf course in Branson, Missouri, like I'm about to be this time tomorrow in an hour from now, starting my little golf vacation, right? What if I want to live stream from there? I'm not going to take all this stuff with me. Right? What if I'm at my daughter's volleyball game and I want to live stream from there? What if I need to be on location? I want to do interviews at a conference and I want to live stream from there. What does this look like, live streaming on the go? So we're going to talk about some ways that you can actually take your live stream out of the office, out into the field, on vacation, on trips, on location, however you want to say it. We're going to be talking about that next week. So remote live streaming is what we're going to be talking about next week. So I hope that you join us for the show next week at 11 a.m. Eastern time. I will be here with you talking about that. It's going to be pretty fun. It's going to be pretty great. Super excited about next week's show. So y'all, you guys are great. I appreciate everybody being here. I definitely appreciate you guys tuning in, letting us kind of go into this long, lengthy conversation about having guests on your shows, picking the perfect guest. But of course, picking them is only part of the process. There's a lot about making sure it's a great guest experience. And so hopefully after today's show, not only have you been inspired to go find guests for your own shows, but to have guests on your shows, because all of the StreamYard plans, free, basic, and professional, all give you the ability to have 6 guests on your streams, up to 6 guests on your streams. And with that professional plan, you can have up to 10. So again, no more streaming Zoom interviews. Let's just use StreamYard. It's a fantastic tool. It's built for streaming. It's awesome. It's a great way for you to actually increase the engagement, create diversity for your audience. As Letitia said earlier, you're breaking the pattern. I loved that she said that earlier. And then, of course, you are also going to increase your subscriptions and your followers, because many times those guests are going to share your stream and you are now being exposed to their audience, which is going to bring new people into your world. And we always want to be growing. We always want to be growing our audience so that we can be expanding and building everything that we're trying to build, making a bigger difference in the world, making a greater impact using live video. So hopefully after today, you were inspired to approach your live streams with guest experiences, but also you now walked away with some tips and some best practices on how to pick guests, but also make sure it's a great experience for you, your guest, and of course, your audience. All right, my friends, until next time, I will see you guys later. Have a great day and happy live streaming.